Rainy season is the time many anticipate respite ending the heat period, and to some, it's actually an enjoyable season, especially children who love to play in the rains. Many also believe it's a time for bumper harvest among many other benefits. Despite all these, many have as well called for caution during this period due to inherent dangers associated with rains. However, the 2022 rainy season, just like every other period, isn't in any way different, but concerns of havoc wreaked by the flood cannot be forgotten in a hurry. Houses flooded, farms worth millions of naira destroyed, with imminent emigration, aside the concerns of wild animals infestation and waterborne diseases already raising scares. Hundreds of people have lost their lives as sights of flood water is seen submerging parts of the country. Kogi, Adamawa, Delta, as well as parts of Lagos, Edo states are yet to come to terms with the effect of flood as many intensely pray for the end of the rainy season. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, reveals that no fewer than 651,053 persons have been rendered homeless by the disaster in 6 councils of Anambra states, with homes, farmlands, schools, health centers, police stations and churches, as well as other critical infrastructure submerged, just to mention a few. As it is now, many are crying for help, as many livelihoods have been utterly destroyed and their sources of living already on hold. How much help can be rendered to these people? Also, why is the flood more this time around compared to previous times? These are some questions guests already seated will be answering shortly on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And joining us in the studio here in Abuja is the Director General, National Water Resources Institute, Kaduna, Professor Emmanuel Adanu. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Also in the studio with us here in Abuja is the Director General, NISA, Engineer Clement Nze. You're welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you.
And in addition to these gentlemen is the Director Relief and Rehabilitation National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, is Al-Hassan Nuhu. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
All right, Al-Hassan, we're glad that you're back again to our studios this morning. You were here yesterday and we had only a brief touch on the flood disaster in Kogi. And via Zoom this morning, joining us from Kogi State is the Commissioner for Information and Communication Strategy in Kogi. That is Kingsley Fanwo. Kingsley, it's my pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right. We also have joining us from Delta via Zoom, and that's the Director General of the Delta State Orientation Bureau. He's Uzum Eugene. Eugene, if you're there, all right, so we can see your face. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians, and thanks for having me.
Okay, now our network center in Makurdi, we're trying to get him on once that gets on with. Once our engineers get that sorted out, we'll introduce the guests that we are getting from Makurdi. As you very well know, Makurdi is host to River Benue, one of the country's 2 major rivers. At least 2 of the guests with us in the studios this morning, Professor Emmanuel Adanu and Engineer Clement Nze, they are regulars on Good Morning Nigeria. Engineer Clement Nze, tell us the flood situation in Nigeria at the moment.
I think the men and women in the field reporting for NTA have said so much, and we've seen several clips here. The flood of 2022 has been quite much, and in terms of the devastation, displacement of people, deaths, and so on and so forth, infrastructure that have been destroyed. I think that I can boldly say that it is worse than 2012. It's worse than what we have seen so far. And it is not yet abating. Going by the figures that we have on ground, we kept saying it here earlier in the year, maybe around July. Now, what we are witnessing so far is local rainfall within Nigeria. Rainfall of high intensity, shorter duration, the climate change issues. More rainfall, we're having it now. Some locations that we used to have about maybe 600 millimeters of rainfall all through the year could witness in about, say, 3-4 days, more than half of that amount. Meaning that the environment in those locations are being forced to take more than they can take. What could have been spread over about 6 months is taking place within a few days. That, translates to flooding. And the third leg of flooding, or you may say the type, is the river flood that has joined now. As we speak, both Kainji, Jeba, Shiruru are overwhelmed in terms of their capacity and have been spilling since around the 14th. And the almighty Lagdo Dam opened their gate on the 13th of September. And going by the communication we had this week, they say it will still continue to the middle of October, or maybe beyond. Then you talk about the travel time from Cameroon, from Lagdo Dam down to Nigeria, which means down to the Delta. We should expect more flooding even by the end of October.
Indeed, the visuals, I'm still going to stay with you briefly. The visuals we've been seeing in the last few days, it's just, it's troubling to the mind itself. It's like it's getting out of control. So what are the social impacts of this flooding on citizens?
Just going back again, in 2012, the maximum height of the flood in Lokoja is the reference point. It occurred September 29th, 2012, and it was a 12.84 meters, the height. As at 5th, I think 2 days ago, yesterday, it was 13.21. We keep talking. We keep sensitizing the people. We keep agitating the sub-nationals. Like, if you watch now, all over the country, there's activity. Actions are going on here and there. But believe me, in the next maybe 2 months, all of us will go back to sleep.
Are the actions not coming a bit too late here?
That's what I'm saying, is late. I was speaking somewhere, I think I was with the DG of Nigeria Governors Forum. We just want to get in touch with them. That's a major meeting point to get all the governors at a city. We said we want to see action by December, January, February, March. Let's begin to see something happening in the states by way of getting prepared. If you go there after the end of the flooding season, you will see the handwriting of the flood, the signature, the flood marks, giving you some information as to what you should have done ahead of time. So it will be a guide to you to prepare for the next flooding. It will tell you something. This is where we are. You will see it all over the places.
Okay.
So the church should be able to take action within this during the dry season period.
All right, Engineer Clement Jose, thank you very much. Professor Emmanuel Adano.
Yes, sir.
Let's have your opening.
I know it's what is happening.
And they have spoken a lot, but I want us to look at the situation. Are we prepared for the flooding? Or can we abate the flooding? Can we also reduce the effect of the flooding? Since 2012, we've been going through this. Kingsley are very much aware of it. It's like a ritual. Every year we keep talking about it. What measures are we putting in place to either reduce the effect of the flood, reduce the flood itself, and also in a position to contain some of the effects of the flood? We know the drainage pattern of the country. We know the rivers that are giving us a lot of recharge. We know the configuration of our valleys. We know the spread of our water resources potential. We know the behavior of our rivers. What do? We know that in the 8 hydrological areas, each one contributes a certain volume of water to a point, and they all come together to discharge to a final point. At Lokoja, engineers, they just mentioned just now, at Lokoja, we have about 3 major basins discharging water to that junction. The hydrological area 1, area 2, area 3, area 4, they all discharge to that point. And we know the volume of water they discharge every year. And we have streams attached to these basins that we can check, maybe construct dams to hold back these waters that are coming. Now we regulate the flow, then minimize this. Now he talked about the travel time. Honestly, it is what I was just discussing this morning. The travel time between Cameroon and Nigeria, sometimes it takes about 3 days or 2 days to reach Yola, about 5 days to reach Makodi, about 7 to 10 days to reach Lokoja. Now, in between these days, you have ambient contributions. Other streams are contributing to this. And these are the streams which you check within our capacity to check to make sure that this flood, we are going to keep having the flood. There's nothing bad about a flood that is properly regulated. But how do you regulate this? Now, I spoke with him some time ago. Cameroon was releasing the spill. That's just like a valve attached to any material. The spillway was discharging about 616 cubic meters of water per second. That time they had not started releasing water. That's a huge volume of water per second. Now the dam was getting filled at a rate they couldn't contain, so they had to open their gates. Now, any dam you build has an operation manual, and if you don't operate it according to that, you have a schedule of release, the dam itself can fail. So that is what Cameroon is doing. If they are doing the right thing, there's nothing we can say about it. There's no patriotism about it. They are doing the right thing. All the dams in this country must be regulated the same way. The Institute has produced the code of practice for the operation of our reservoirs we have distributed. So everybody must do it. So Cameroon is doing it. The only thing we can do on that line is to construct the dozen house dam.
Well, thank you so much. Let's now join the Commissioner for Information and Communication Strategy in Kogi State, Kingsley Femi Fanwa. Kogi State is in the eye of the storm right now, and it's a state that is strategic to, connection between the southern part of the country and the northern part of the country. We've seen the visuals of the flooding in Kogi. It's overwhelming. It's devastating. Tell us what is going on and what is the situation right now, and how are you trying to bring it under control?
Thank you very much. As a state, we sympathize with the rest of Nigeria for the hardship they are currently witnessing as a result of the very devastating flood in Kogi State. When they refer to Kogi State as a North Central state, I call it an error of geographical definition. We are not at the center of the north, we are at the center of Nigeria. So we're actually a central Nigerian state. So that's why we are seeing all of this difficulty in getting a lot of things into other parts of the country because of the problem in Kogi State. It is quite devastating. And when you look at it, it is even scary because we're expecting more waters. And so the flooding is going to get even more serious than it is now. We witnessed our first flood in 1936, and the magnitude was 13.40. In 2012, it was 12.88. Already, 3 days ago, is already 13.20 in Kogi State. So it is something that is very serious. And in the Baji local government area, it has been confirmed that about 7 people had already lost their lives because of that. Farmlands have been destroyed, ponds have been destroyed, and it's practically impossible to access Lokoja from the Federal Capital Territory and many other parts of the country as we speak. So it's a very serious issue. Thousands of houses have already been submerged in 9 local government areas in the state: Lokoja local government, Kogi, Kotonkarfi local government, Ajakuta local government, of local government, Igalamela, Ibaji, Ida, and about 9 other local government areas are already submerged under the furious flood. So I think it's something that calls for national and international attention to be able to ameliorate the hardship that victims of this flood are currently going through in Abia State.
Okay. All right. Kingsley Fanwo, Commissioner for Information, thank you. We'll come back to you presently. Earlier, we indicated that we're going to have a guest join us from Makurdi, which, of course, it's on the path of River Benue. So we have the guest now from our Makurdi Network Center, Dr. Emmanuel Shaw. He's Executive Secretary of the State Emergency Management Agency. Dr. Shaw, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, and then let's take your first comment. A couple of weeks ago, there were already reports of River Benue busting its banks in Makurdi, and some houses were submerged, and there were reports of also fatalities. What has been happening since that impact?
Thank you for having me. Rightly, as you have said, Benue State has had her own share of this year's flooding also. Professor Emmanuel Adanu explained to us about the movement of the water when it is especially this time, part of which is the release of water from Alagdo Dam. He said it takes about 3 days for the water that is released from there to get to Yola, and 5 days to Makurdi, and then about 10 days to Lokoja. What that tells you is that the speed and the magnitude that is felt by the people around Makurdi is very high. About 134,797 persons have been affected by this flood in 12 local governments, which include Guma, Vandika, Otukpo, Katsina-Ala, Makurdi, Apa, Agatu, Taka, Boko, Gwe West, Logo, Buruku. We have recorded about 24 deaths, about 74 injured persons, close to 2,000 hectares of farmlands have been submerged. Close to 20,000 households have been affected. It is very worrisome. But well, on the part of our Benue State government, as a government that is responsive and responsible, we have shared the tips and the fact that this year's flooding will come with NISA, NIMET, and NEMA. So we started with preparedness. We put certain things in place. For us, in Benue, flooding is a perennial. It happens yearly, that has been reported by the experts in the studio there with you. So now that it has happened with this high magnitude, we have, on the directive of His Excellency Dr. Samuel Uriah Otom, the Governor of Benue State, we have established a camp at Abagana. Abagana is already hosting some IDPs from Fulani herdsmen attacks in Benue. So part of that facility that was established by a Presidential Committee on Flood has been set aside for the victims of the flood. We have also gone around and profiled the affected persons, as I've reported, in all the communities. His Excellency has mobilized Benue State with the procurement of food items and non-food items. We have gone around and distributed the food items to the affected victims. We have also met with stakeholders at the state level coordination meeting to look at ways of supporting the Benue State government through Benue State to assist the affected persons. Yesterday, all the stakeholders and line MDS returned to Benue State, and we moved into the field because when we met various stakeholders, especially the NGOs, both domestic, national, and as well as international, who are a few of them who are in Benue State assisting us in the area of victims of flooding herdsmen attacks, went out with us yesterday with various levels of their commitments to assist the affected victims. That is where we are. We have also gotten support from National Emergency Management Agency. Their water purification machine is already in Kogi. We have taken that machine around some communities in Kogi to purify water. Remember, water sources have been contaminated, and so there is need to purify water and provide good water to the people. They were about 3 days back. NEMA was also in Agatu. Agatu is down the line, so it is also worst hit. So they went there and produced over 6,000 liters of water for that community. NEMA has also started sending relief items to Benue State warehouse to support the Benue State government in all of this. We are talking to partners to join hands with Benue State to support the Benue State government so as to attend to the victims. So that is where we are at the moment.
For your input there, and let's now join the Director General Delta State Orientation Bureau, Barrister Uzom Eugene. Asaba is on the banks, of the River Niger, and let's have your situation report of what's happening right now in Delta State and how you're trying to bring this situation under control.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, our heart goes, and we really sympathize with the situation of the flooding across the country. And like you know, Delta State is getting its fair share of it. Going by the predictions of NEMA, the Delta State government proactively commenced sensitization because it's a government that believes that when the people have the needed information, it will mitigate on the effect, considering the fact that nobody is able to hold down the dam due to global warming, the volume of rainfall that's coming in. And at the same time, the dams within our jurisdictions and those without outside our jurisdiction. So the level of water is considerably very high in practically 10 local governments. But from the prediction and judging from what's been happening since 2012, it will affect up to 15 or 16 local governments. In the Asaba axis to Shimili South local government, we have the Okogbele, Okoanala, and Okoamalakom axis submerged. That's where you have the axis, the second Niger bridge. It's quite challenging. In the Ndokwa East axis, where you have Beneku, or where you have the Opai plant, the Abo axis, Onoabo, it's quite a major challenge in the sense that a lot of places have been submerged by the flood. The Isoko axis in Delta South, Uzere axis, Obrobo, Elu, and Isoko North and South local government, it's quite a challenge. The state government commenced even before the flooding came in, we commenced through the State Orientation Bureau and the Ministry of Information a sensitization informing our people of the impending flood. We based on the fact that it has become like an annual ritual. Even before the prediction, state government has already started informing our people. For those who are on the coastline, they wanted the lowlands to move upward. And those who have the farmers who are into fish farming and other types of crop farming, that their crops are near harvest, they can harvest and then they can take away their farm produce like the animal husbandry. But critically, the state government set up an interministerial committee headed by Chief Patrick Uka, the state secretary to the state government, that's carrying out a lot of intervention on our people to mitigate on the challenges. The interministerial committee consists of the Ministry of Environment, which is the mother ministry of the challenges. We have the Ministry of Information, the State Orientation Bureau for Information Dissemination. Then we have the State Emergency Management Agency, the Ministry of Power and Energy, the Ministry of Education, and other critical MDAs. What they've been able to do is that beyond sending the information to our people, 3 camps are already opened across the senatorial district, especially in the Delta North Senatorial District, where you have the Asaba axis and the my axis and the Beneku axis. And then in Delta South, there is the Suko axis, where the flooding is also heavy. Away from that, the unique thing about that of Delta State is that when the water starts residing in the Asaba axis, it starts going up more in the Patani Brutu axis, emptying into Bayelsa before it empties into the River Niger. So we have 2 different kinds of challenge. The water is up now, and the flooding is quite massive. Beyond the intervention of the state government through the strategic committee and the other NGOs, we've been able to reach out to our traditional rulers, through the State Traditional Rulers Council, to ensure that the information gets to the nooks and crannies of the state, even using our local dialect and languages. We've also been able to reach out to the the President Generals of all the kingdoms in Delta State through our handles to keep the people duly informed. Hello?
Eugene, thank you very much there for the detailed information that you have provided. We'll have more questions for you, and we do hope that the Zoom connection will remain stable for the remainder of the conversation. But one point, I hope this was very clear from both Engineer Clement Nze, who is the Director General of the Hydrological Services Agency, and Professor Emmanuel Adano, who is of the Water Institute. Now, they've given the travel time from of the waters from Cameroon, when it will hit Yola, when it will hit Makurdi, when it will hit Lokoja. And of course, Lokoja is, if you may, impounding water from all kinds of sources now. You are down the river. You've mentioned, say, oh, when the water recedes in Asaba, then it goes up in lower lands. That's the way it's going to be. Which means, as Engineer Nze has already advised, the weeks ahead probably could be more, I don't want to use the word devastating, could be more challenging. Are you factoring this into your preparedness to avert the disaster in the path of the act of God that is coming? Looks like there was a switch there. But Eugene Uzum will come back to you in the course of the conversation. Now back to our studios here. Director Al Hassan Nuhu of NEMA. We're glad again, as we said, you're here. And earlier on, the Executive Secretary of Benue State spoke about some heartwarming development, that namely NEMA is already also intervening in the areas devastated by the floods in Benue. And I'm quite thrilled by the fact that they say that you have sent in your water purification equipment. What else is NEMA doing at this time?
Well, our officers are all over the place, supporting the states in rescuing affected population. As we have dispatched water purifiers, we've dispatched our boats also to support the riverine states in terms of rescue. As persons affected are rescued. We have deployed relief materials in all the 36 states, and we are monitoring the situation to be providing more and more as the need arises. We are already engaging our stakeholders all over the place. It has reached a stage now that we will invite the unique capability of the military to come in and support us in terms of even logistics. As the water is going down, we are already preparing our mind that at a stage we might engage the military in dropping some of these relief items. So the preoccupation now is the safety of the people, and then to provide them with food, with non-food items on a continuous basis. It's purely on a need basis. As there is need for more, NEMA will be supporting. But it's important to realize that this is a job for everybody. The federal government, the state government, the local government, even the public-spirited individuals are there to provide support. The Presidential Committee on Flood are still on ground, and they are providing succor. At this hour, this is the hour of what we call risk retention. By retaining the risk, it means all other avenues are going down. Risk transfer, risk mitigation. This is the hour of providing your full preparedness to veer, providing critical life-saving issues, food, non-food items, water in particular, because issues of cholera will start to...
Yes, I was coming to
exactly.
How prepared are you to handle health challenges that might arise from these situations?
We are working with the Ministry of Health. This is a work for various ministries, departments, and agencies. We have already contacted the Honorable Minister of Health that the flood is already bringing issues of cholera. We've witnessed it's coming down now. We have had cases of cholera already in Maiduguri, in Gombe, and this is the trend as it moves to the south. So we alerted the Honorable Minister of Health that it is within their jurisdiction to provide medical support to the victims. But of course, as a catalyst agency, we try to fill in the gaps where support is not adequate. We provide detergents, Dettol, Izal to sanitize the place, and then to support with drinking water so that cholera outbreak doesn't become another disaster within a disaster. We monitor the situation. As the situation escalates, our support will also escalate.
What is your synergy with the state emergency management agencies of these states that are,
We are working in tandem with them. We plan with them. We identify higher grounds with them. And every single action we do it with the state government, we do it with the Red Cross, we do it with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies. They provide the full of these resources of personnel from the state, and we coordinate from the federal government. The system is supposed to be for everybody. Luckily enough, the National Flood Preparedness Mitigation and Response Plan has been approved. That has also delineated roles for federal, for state, for local government, and the community level at all the facets. This is supposed to be a collaborative effort. Everybody bringing his expertise, his resources. No agency of government can do it alone. No tier of government can do it alone. We have to do it together, and we work very, very seamlessly with the state emergency management agencies. So their own capability, as much as our capability need to be enhanced, but we are working together.
Hassan, well, thank you. There's an issue I will raise later about water and the purification process and all that. But I just want to pause so that we'll return to both Adano and Nze. Clem, I know on Good Morning Nigeria in the past, when we had discussed issues of flooding, it appears, explain to our viewers what is happening basically now. Is it just the case now that what we are getting is from River Benue, coming from Cameroon? Because you also say in the past that you monitor what is coming from River Niger, upstream River Niger, and some monitoring device that you guys read somewhere around NEMA or so. Should we also have our sights on what is on the waters coming from River Niger? And if so, what is that likely to spell for us?
Thank you so much. We are in daily communication with authorities upstream River Niger. Actually, there is a body, Niger Basin Authority, which coordinates activities, development with regard to water in the 9 member countries. Like I always say, Nigeria is at the bottom of this particular basin. So daily we get information as to what is the level of flood in Niamey. From Niamey, it comes to Benin Republic. There's a measuring equipment in Niamey. There's one in Malanville in Benin Republic. So whatever happens to these places gives us an insight of what to say or what to do. So as we speak, the water level in Niamey is within comfortable level. There is no threat as today with regards to what is coming in from that flank, which makes us to conclude that the flood that is coming from that angle that has made Kainji and Jeba to begin to spill water is from the rainfall within Nigeria. Not that so much like in 2012, I know, 2020, Malanville reached a height it never happened before in history. So that's how they help to flood Kogi State and several other places. But for whatever is happening as at today, it's mainly rainfall we're having within our country that made Kainji Dam to get a certain height that he felt that the dam is being threatened. That they began to open the dam, and once it began, Jeba, about 100 kilometers downstream, must follow suit. So we are not having any major threat from Niger or Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Conakry, and so on and so forth. There's no threat from that side.
On Monday, you still raised concerns. You talked about serious consequences in some states of the federation, and you're saying that as the dam continues to overflow, the states should be on alert. Let's talk about this. Climate change is real, whether we like it or not.
Yes.
Talking on, at conferences about climate change and, making statements, does it reflect back home here in Nigeria, where every year warnings are issued and not taken seriously? Climate change is coming, whether we like it or not. How serious is the government on the effects of climate change in Nigeria and mitigating it in itself?
It has become a song we sing everywhere, climate change. Climate change. Yes, it is real. It is happening. But we shouldn't blame everything on climate change. There are steps we need to have taken, or we should be taking as responsible citizens, responsible sub-nationals in Nigeria, that once you get these advisories from relevant forecasting agencies, we take some fiscal measures, things that could be seen. Not to use that as a line of least resistance. Even when you fail to do what you ought to have done, you say, oh, it is climate change. Yes, climate change has, but already such that places that have never experienced heavy flooding or so much rainfall that are experiencing it today, or the fact that we are now having heavy amount of rainfall within a short period. These are climate change issues. But we shouldn't abdicate about responsibilities and say it is climate change. So what we are saying is this: when we give predictions, we expect that the action should be taken to ameliorate, to reduce the impact of that climate change. In this case, in terms of flooding. So let something be done physically. We talk about other desilting of our rivers within our localities, building dams, removing people from. I think yesterday I saw the DG of FEMA, FCT, Material Management Agency. They removed about 700 houses, whether you call them shanties, whatever.
On the waterways?
Yes, in different flood plains within our FCT, about 700. So such things should be done before the flooding actually kickstarts.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Nze. Back to Professor Adano. Professor Adano, again, in seeking to understand just what is happening and then the policy implication. Jigawa announced some weeks ago flood devastation, I think with fatalities as well. Some years earlier, it was on the western flank, which was Kebbi. Kebbi was submerged for the most part. The farmers lost their crops and all that. And this year, we've had it from Jigawa. We've had it also from Adamawa. Help us understand why this is so. And then, more importantly, the issue about the silted dams and other reservoirs that we have in the country. Has any step been taken to desilt these dams so that the volume of water that they impound could at least mitigate the extent of the flooding?
Okay, I'll answer the last one first.
Anyway.
I don't think any dam has been desilted. And, well, that is answered. In Jigawa, Nze just mentioned that we have stations that record water flow into Nigeria. Now, at the Nigeria boundary, annually, we have a potential amount of about 26 billion cubic meters of water coming into Nigeria. Now, at that point, from that point to Lokoja, River Niger to Lokoja, when Benue joins, at Lokoja we have 67 billion cubic meters of water. So the difference between 26 and 67 is what is generated internally in Nigeria. Now, some of these waters come from hydrological area 1, which is north, then area 2, which is middle Niger, then 3 and 4. Now, Jigawa is within one of these hydrological areas. The problem with Jigawa is because this is the second time in 3 years. We've been there, my institute went there, we did a massive analysis of the flood at the time. Around Jigawa, there, this river Hadija, it braids into Marmara, Burungana, Kirikasama, and all this. And the agricultural activity, because they are majorly farmers in that place, also helps to loosen the land. So if there's any serious rainfall, it packs the soil first. And the river now distributes this in a flatter environment. So now constricting flow in even not well-defined valleys. So it happens over the years. So if you have the kind of rainfall that I was talking about, high intensity concentrated within a short time, the capacity to move that water is not there. So the river just stroll around or try to disperse this, we have this flood. And it's constant around that area because of the structure in the place. Now, in Kebbi has a large part of the Niger. Now, when the floods come in Kebbi, because there's a point that the river is straight for some time, then bends. Now, when you have a bend like that, normally it causes the slowness and the water starts disappearing. The governor of Kebbi at the time, we were on television together, and I told him, now that we know this thing can happen annually, and farmers are here. All you need to do is to inform the farmers on how to regulate their kind of farming. In the dry season, they go there, take the residual moisture. In the rain season, they pull off. Now, the flood will bring nutrients. Then, dry season, you come and farm. Rain season, you move up. Because the flood also tries to fertilize the place and also provide water into the ground. Because KB has the least water penetration into the ground, about 6 billion. So, if water comes from and sprays there, you can enhance your groundwater. I told the governor that time. So that is also a positive aspect of it.
Did he take it? Did he take that advice?
I don't know. I don't go to the state, so I went there twice and I didn't see any action being taken. But this we have even written and given him. Now, other parts of the country, you may have like the Adamawa side. You ask NISA, this flood from Niger, is it as devastating as the one from Benue? Now, Benue has more water than Niger.
The River
Benue contributes more than Niger. Niger is longer, but Benue has more water. Because the hydrological areas adjacent to Benue, they are the most specific yielding, the highest you can find. One of the hydrological areas generates about 65 billion cubic meters annually. The others have about 30, 31, and all this. While the other areas, area 1, area 2, area 1 and 8, only 8. Area 1 is 8, area 2 is 7, area 8 is 7. Area 5, which is Anambra Imo environment, derives water from the Udi Hills. It has only 14 billion cubic meters generated annually. It may be because it's small. This west littoral, that's Ogunwashun area there, generates about 35 billion cubic meters of water. Then the eastern littoral, where you have Cross River, some other, and adjacent to Cameroon Mountains and all this, that's the most yielding one. Kwa River, Cross River, and all this, but 65 billion. And these are along the Benue track. Now, because of the high intensity and also resourcefulness of the rivers there, in Benue, the axis there. River Donga, Katsina-Ala, Suntai, and all these contribute.
Professor Adano, I mean, listening to all of this, people will say this should be a blessing.
It is.
This should be a blessing to all. But now, we are seeing the impact of the floods. And some of the visuals that you have been seeing on the screen that are taken by our correspondents. Now, you can see this is the consequence of the traffic gridlock on the Lokoja, Abuja highway because the roads are impassable. And you can see parts of Lokoja there all submerged right up to Kotokarife. We understand this is the consequence. Everybody's waiting for this, to clear up. And as you have always said, we repeated it again this morning, Professor Adano, that flooding ordinarily should be a blessing because it brings nutrients to fertilize the soil, help recharge the underground aquifers. But are we managing this blessing properly?
No. I would say maybe I'm guilty too, but because I was director of dams, I may be guilty, but I alone cannot do it. But we have situations where we really need to, because this volume of water, Kingsley, that I said we are taking, internally generated volume of water, more than half of it, more than half of that water goes into the ocean. Just really. So
totally wasted.
Just wasted. And it's fresh water. So if we can trap these waters inland by having small dams here and there, at least moderating, then we regulate the dams, the flow. So the amount of water coming right into the system, the two major systems, will be regulated. Then in the rainy season, you impound. In the dry season, you release, emptying all your reservoirs. In the rainy season, it fills up. In the dry season, you release. We know that it can't stop total flooding because natural things could happen. But we can regulate a substantial amount of this. We have Kashimbila Dam, which we constructed. It was to contain flooding from Lake Nyos. Now, Lake Nyos has not broken. Now, if it breaks, we'll contain it. But the river, that dam, is also regulating 27% of the water that Kasnala is contributing to Benue. So at least we can block that one. If the Benue is getting filled and all the inflows are coming, we can shut that one, at least reduce this. So if we have such dams all around the country, we can shut them.
Interesting. Yes, well, quite interesting. Let's now go back to Kogi, where the Information and Communication Strategy Commissioner is waiting, Kingsley Femi. We can see from the visuals coming from Lokoja, and we even saw a visual of the governor in the canoe trying to assess the level of damage to the state capital. And we know that you're not resting on your oars, but how difficult is it for you to reach, hinterland, to be able to bring people out, or are people still stuck in these places?
Thank you very much. Before the governor went in a canoe to see those affected by the flood in very difficult to reach areas, he addressed the state and called on the federal government to declare Kogi a natural disaster zone. It is a very precarious situation right now. We are in the middle of a very serious humanitarian crisis. If you see what is happening in Ibaji, Kotonkarufi, Lokoja, and all other local government areas that are affected, you will know that Kogi people are in a very serious trouble right now. So we call on the federal government, federal agencies to come to our rescue. The governor has shown leadership by ensuring that IDP camps are provided. He has also ensured that he went to go and see them where they are, so that they would know that he's leading from the front to assuage the sufferings they are presently going through. So that has given them some level of confidence, comfort, and that kind of a feeling that this is the leader on a canoe coming to see us. So that has really improved how they feel about the whole thing. But that has not removed them from the waters. We launched a lot of sensitization campaign before it happened, and even now we are still. It's always very difficult to pull people out of their ancestral homes and all of that. But when you juxtapose that with the need for their safety, they have to accept the need to come to higher grounds, go to the camps that have been provided by the government. Let us also use this opportunity to appreciate NEMA. NEMA has done very, very well for their state. They brought their water purification facility to the state. They've also brought a lot of food items to the state. We know they're finding it very difficult to even access the state capital and other areas that are affected, but they have not been resting. They have been moving around to ensure that they provide what is needed for the people. So it is very difficult to access those areas, but as a government, it is the responsibility. It is our responsibility to make sure we reach them, pull them out of the troubled waters, and bring them to grounds that are quite safe.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Just before we take this short break, I just wanted to also ask the Director General of Delta SEMA, Delta Orientation Bureau rather, not Delta SEMA. The SEMA is from Makurdi. Well, I was asking earlier, before we lost your Zoom connection, whether you had factored in the advisory by both Engineer Nze and Professor Adano, that namely, look, more water is coming from upland, that is from the Cameroon end, and that Lokoja, that is currently taking a hit, is going to flow down to your parts in Asaba, Ndokwa, Isoko, and then further down before, of course, it gets to the real delta locations and then it gets into the Atlantic. You said that your state had embarked on sensitization. What was the response to the sensitization? Because we keep hearing about resistance, people are willing to move. Now, there are reasons that have been adduced for instance, for people being unwilling to move. They say that, I'm not saying specifically about your state, but in some cases they say that, look, there's no adequate provision in the temporary shelters that they have. They're just sometimes just thrown in there like persons, who are destitute. So what has been the response to your sensitization campaign, and how many persons have been, if you may, taken out of harm's way?
Yes, thank you very much. The issues raised by Mr. Clement of NIMET and has been factored in the sense that you will recall that over time this has been on since 2012, and there's been a protocol, and the protocol has been sensitization, massive sensitization, development of IDP camps and catering for the victims, and then demobilization when the water recedes. Well, the result of this sensitization has been great. This is because we worked closely with Argon. Every local government has a chairman here in Delta State, and every local government also has got a kingdom ruled by a traditional ruler. Like I mentioned earlier, we worked closely with the traditional rulers, the local government chairman, and the president general of town union. So with that, we're able to transmit the message to the doorsteps of our people, even with their local language. Yes, there are the pockets of issues of ignorance. We call that ignorance, where people tell you, this is our ancestral land, this is where we belong, we're not moving anywhere. Some will say, we'd rather die here. But we also make them to understand that if you die, you cannot own or possess that land. But Delta State is quite unique in this, like I mentioned, in this flooding disaster, in the sense that when the water is coming in from those axes, the tributaries, and rising in the Asaba axis, the Ndoko axis, and part of Uzere, Usuko axis, when it's receding there, you see it rising in Patani, Burutu, Bomodi axis, before moving to Bayelsa and emptying into the river Niger. So the state government has proactively opened up IDP camps. We have 3 functional IDP camps now. And at the moment, what's happening is that we are doing a proper enumeration, because we have had situations where people want to just come to the camp because of government provision. And the state government adopted a model called Know Your People, Know Your Persons Properly, KYMP. KYMP means, hello, can you hear me?
We're listening.
We can hear you.
Yes, fantastic. KYMP means Know Your People Properly. What that does for us is that we are able to bring in political office holders. Each local government has got a House of Assembly member, it's got a local government chairman, it's got a councillor. And so what that does for us is we're able to identify the victims properly and then ensure that they are the ones receiving the support from government. The state emergency management agencies running very fast under the committee led by the Secretary of the State Government. At the moment, we've not started seeing support trickling in from the federal agencies, but we believe that it's in the offing. This is because we are very sure that they are looking at the water flow monitoring and ensuring that it gets to places where the devastation is more at the moment. So we are using this opportunity to call up that we have a challenge here. The challenge is that the flood has come. It has submerged a lot of places, over 70 communities across board, and it's rising by the day. The water level is quite high, with government intervention sufficient, but cannot be totally adequate because the population is quite high. Beyond that, the state government has also been able to reach out to the civil society organization, because the partnership is not just about the people, it's about the environment, it's about other critical stakeholders. So we are using this opportunity to still, call up the civil society organizations to, support the process, support the process by ensuring that there's no loss of life and property, and also ensuring that we mitigate on the challenges, because the challenges are there. The challenges have come. For example, if you go to Uzuri axis in Isoko, a lot of communities have been totally cut off from the main local government. So we use speedboats or flying boats and other canoes to access those places. The committee ensures that education is not hampered within the IDP camps. The State Ministry of Health, in collaboration with the Primary Healthcare Development Agency, is on ground to ensure that the full COVID protocol is observed, because it's a government that cares for the life and security of the people and prefers to err on the side of caution.
Indeed, Pastor Uzom, it's a very good point you raised here, you know, the issue of COVID-19. And as the program begins to wind down, we'll be able to come back to you so that we can find out how you're strategizing and trying to find ways to make sure that there are no loss of lives, no loss of property, which it cannot be helped. We'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will continue. Please don't go away.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation, and in our operations we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities, and we've been able to also recover particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Everywhere you go, from banks to hospitals to public offices, mass transit stations, airports, and even telecommunication centers, senior citizens are treated as nuisances. They are not. They are senior members of our society, and they deserve the utmost respect. We shouldn't be having our aged fathers and mothers standing in long queues to withdraw their monies at banks. Our retired senior citizens shouldn't be caught standing in buses for lack of seats or chasing after one just to get to their destination. Senior citizens shouldn't have to sit long hours in hospital corridors with no geriatric specialist to attend to them. Our senior citizens deserve better treatment from all of us. They deserve to be listened to. They are deserving of seat reservations on public buses and priority attendance in public spaces. As young people, we are quick to say, no one owes you. This is not true. We owe the elderly members of our society a helping hand, our services, and respect. Age-friendly societies have more senior citizens enjoying good health, living safely, and engaging in meaningful community work than those who do not. Dignifying age-friendly services for senior citizens.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We have quite a contingent of guests this morning bringing different perspectives on the flood situation in the country. Many more issues to deal with, but let's one more time bring in the director from NEMA, Al-Hassan Nuhu. Al-Hassan Nuhu, well, you've received some praise, and this is noteworthy, no question about that. That over time, NEMA has escalated the intensity and scope of its intervention. I was going to talk about the water purification process. We know that even before the floods, we have a crisis of availability of potable water. Poor reticulation systems in cities, and in the rural areas, of course, we know how challenging it is. And in some cases, you have water merchants all over the place using their tankers and so on and so forth. What is there in place to be sure that these merchants will not now begin to take advantage of persons who are in dire need of potable water at this time?
Well, over time, we received these water purification machines as donations from the government of Japan. And they train our officers on how to use it. That is why whenever flooding season is about to commence, we take these machines to critical areas and we dispatch our officers who have expertise to do it. And we don't allow these machines are deployed on need basis only, where there is critical need of this. But all this while also, Ministry of Water Resources, they lead the water, sanitation and hygiene subsector in the emergency sector. They provide water. What we do is to plug in the gaps. Where there are gaps, as an emergency agency, we quickly move in. But we notify the water, sanitation and hygiene sector to brace up also to this challenge. We are contributing to what the sector is supposed to bring on board. There is no point, there is no way these machines can be taken for granted anywhere. They are provided on need basis only. Water is one of the key issues, key problem apart from food, non-food items during emergency. Of course, there are other issues like education in emergency. The Ministry of Education leads that sector. There are issues of protection, protecting the rights of the IDPs. The Human Rights Commission, the Ministry of Women Affairs, they lead that sector. So it's supposed to be a system that provides for every sector. And we are there as a coordinating agency, and we plug in the gaps where they exist. And the system is purely on a need basis. Where there is need, we deliver, and we ensure we have safeguards to stop abuse of these materials, of these resources. On the issue of, I had the Delta.
Yes, you're saying that they haven't seen anything yet from the federal government.
If they have not seen it,
are you giving me any reassurance?
We have an office in Asaba, and they talk closely with they engage the SEMA. Our materials are all over the place, and we deploy more on a need basis.
Have you deployed to Delta now?
We've deployed to Delta.
It's
Maybe
on the way,
it has not reached there, or it is still on the way, but we've deployed to all over the country, just as the person in Benue and in Lokoja have asserted. We are providing more as the need arises.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's join Dr. Emmanuel in Makurdi. Dr. Emmanuel, it's been said that in the next few days, more water, more rain will be coming, and Benue State, of course, with the river Benue there, it's in a strategic position where it can be immensely affected by the coming rains and water coming from Cameroon, from Nigeria and all that. So what are you putting on ground to ensure that lives are protected?
As I said earlier, that Benue State Emergency Management Agency, under the watch of our amiable governor, Dr. Samuel Uriah Tom, is not resting on. We're not resting on our oars. We're working closely with other partners. I'm talking about other humanitarian partners in the state. And I mentioned earlier that it was just yesterday that we started the movement of visiting sites and communities that are affected by flood. And the aim of visiting them is not only to provide for their needs in a situation as this, but also to provide psychosocial support. I mentioned also earlier that for the persons that are affected within Makurdi local government, Benue SEMA has established an RDP's or has provided an RDP's space in an already existing an RDP's a camp that is hosting Fulani herdsmen victims. The space is big enough to accommodate victims that are desperately in need of shelter. We're working with other partners to also expand that camp. We're working together with local government chairmen. At the level of local governments, we have what is known as NEMAs, that is local government emergency committees headed by the chairmen themselves. We have our desk officers. So we have continued to receive reports from local governments. Remember, I said earlier that we have profiled already over 134,000 victims.
For sure. Thank you very much for the information that you have provided. We're getting close to the end of the program. I want to be able to take closing thoughts from the other guests. I want to come back very quickly to Professor Adano. Look, how do we explain this? We hear about the amount of rainfall in different parts of the country. You hear of flooding in the north, you hear of flooding in the north central, you hear of flooding in the south. And yet we're talking about desert encroachment, desertification all over the place. So somebody who is listening and watching probably will also be shocked. If there's water in Kebbi, there's water in Jigawa, there's water in Niger Republic where you monitor the flow of the River Niger, there's water in Borno, there's flooding in Adamawa. Why are we still talking about desert encroachment in the country?
Well, there are two seasons in Nigeria, you should know that. The rainy season, where you have the rains, and the dry season, when you don't have the rains. Now, there are two directional movements of the wind, the northeast trade winds and the southwest trade winds. The northeast trade winds comes from the Sahara, bringing hot air and dry. Then the southwest trade winds comes from the south, the ocean, and goes up. When the two of them are always meeting at all the time they are in action. But when one prevails over the other one, then you have that one that will provide the weather at a time. Now, when they meet, we call the squall. The northeast come in, the southwest, they meet. Anytime they meet, you have thunder, you have turbulence and all these things. So when the rains are starting, you notice that a lot of wind and all the two winds are meeting, the trade winds are meeting. So the stronger one will keep pushing the other one. Now, desertification comes when the one from the northeast prevails and brings the sand and all this dry air. Everything is very dry. It brings the sand and comes there. When it prevails for a long time, for instance, if you have a short rainy season, a long dry season period with all this coming, the encroachment increases. When the southwest trade winds that brings the rain goes, it is in this direction, not east southwest. So the one that prevails always dominates the weather at a time. But you know, in the north, far north, the dry period is longer than the rainy period. The reverse in there. So that's why you have the desertification.
And then the waters that are falling now, because you said that about 50% of the fresh water gets lost to the ocean.
Yes.
We can't possibly trap some of it and then rechannel it to area, because when you have green vegetation can also ward off desertification, I imagine.
Thank you very much. You can trap this water in dams, small dams. When they fall at all, if you have small dams all over the place, you can trap the water. Now, the demand of water on the dams also is part of it. Animals, especially in the far north where you have grazing, is very important now, and you must make provision for such animals too. So balancing this is always a problem. But when you have a long spell of dry period, evaporation and some other things will deplete the water. Now, the soil itself is very important. Can it take water into the ground through percolation? If it can't, it goes as overland flow. And that's the one we don't want. That's the one we can trap and hold, so that over a long period, it can percolate gradually, while we still use the surface one as this.
Indeed. Engineer Clem, how do you begin to curb flooding in Nigeria?
You know, globally, we talk of developing resilience, adaptation, because climate change is here. So we should find a way, a better way, another way of doing what we are doing currently, in order to be able to face the challenges still ahead. The issue of sensitizing the people, the issue of removing structures that are impeding the flow of flood should be intensified. Taking action during the dry season. So much actions are taking place now everywhere. Everybody talks about flooding in Nigeria. Governors talk about it. But when I was at Governor's Forum, with the DG, he said that was one of the agenda. That everybody, they refuse to belong to any party when that issue came up at their meeting, because it cuts across all states. So we employ relevant authorities as subnationals to take appropriate measures at the right time, not when we're already inside it.
Okay. All right, Engineer Clemens, thank you very much. But gentlemen, that's about it for us on the flood situation at the moment. We hope that we'll be able to return to it subsequently when the news gets happier. And more importantly, we've been advised that when the water is receding, people should be careful about getting back into their homes because the integrity of the structures might have been affected by the flood waters.
Apart from the structures too, I think reptiles and so many things.
All kinds of aquatic, dangerous aquatic crocodiles and so on and so forth. So that would just be it. But before we sign off our guests, Kingsley Farwood, the Honorable Commissioner for Information in Kogi State, we were reading in the newspapers this morning during our newspaper review segment that your state government shut down the Dangote cement factory, I believe at Abuja, and that some other young persons also invaded the company. What is that issue there, very quickly?
Thank you very much. Before I even go into that, let me also assure people that we've provided enough security in all of the IDP camps, so they are very safe. Not only at those camps, but we provided security in all the affected areas so that we can save people. But having said that,
Mr. Farwell, we're getting pressed for time. Please just go straight to the question about the Dangote cement company. We're getting pressed for time. Thank you.
The matter is an issue between the people of Kogi State and the Dangote group. There are a lot of petitions against Dangote on the questionable acquisition of that company, and we've asked them to come forward with some documents which they have been avoiding for a very long time. The House of Assembly has summoned them a number of times and they have avoided that. So there was a resolution by the State House of Assembly to seal the company, which was carried out yesterday by the Bureau of Land and other government agencies. They went there peacefully, seal the company. Nobody was attacked, and there were no even invasion by hoodlums. So I don't know where they got their stories from. They need to come to the House of Assembly to give explanations as to how they acquire the company. That's what they need, not this ongoing propaganda and blackmail.
All right, Farnwell, thank you very much. But you didn't clarify something essentially. So how they acquired the company, and then it's the Lands Bureau that is dealing with the issue. Is it a land acquisition or acquisition of corporate interest?
The acquisition, there are two things here. The acquisition of corporate interest and the acquisition of land. These two are very critical to setting up a company as big as Dangote Cement Company.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner for Information and Communication Strategy, Kogi State, Kingsley Femi Fanwa. It's been a pleasure having your input on the program. And also, we're also joined by DG National Water Resources Institute, Kaduna, Professor Emmanuel Adanu. Thank you so much for your insight into the topic. And the Director General NESA, Engineer Clement Inze, as always, it's a pleasure to have you join us. And the Director Relief and Rehabilitation National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Al-Hassan Nuhu. Thank you for coming. I'm sure you're losing a lot of sleep over this issue.
Thank you very much.
Not easy, yes. And joined us via Zoom, the Director General, Delta State Orientation Bureau, Barrister Uzom Eugene. Thank you so much for your contribution on the topic. Dr. Emmanuel Shaw, Executive Secretary, SEMA, Benue State. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today. I am Jumbo Yesov.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo.